We're back with a bonus conversation you'll only see here on CBS News New York. So I'd like to ask you this. I know that the Democratic establishment has not been supporting you, that the district attorney, has the support of almost every Democratic club and a lot of the unions. How is that going to hurt you or help you when you run in the Democratic primary?
Well, you know, it certainly it hurts in the traditional ways. So get out the vote efforts, the ability to raise money and, you know, put the level of advertising up to get my recognition up the way I would like. So I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt at all, because there are benefits to being part of the establishment. The problem for being to even try to be part of the establishment, I think that the Democrat Party establishment, even though I'm proud to say a 40-year registered Democrat in Queens, for what I just alluded to, they created this problem. So I can't have my cake and eat it. If I were to run as part of the establishment, I couldn't call it out as directly and forthrightly as I am. Now, I think politically, not only in terms of my own personal ethics, that's the only way I could do it, but politically I think it helps, because my positions, I believe, are far more in touch with rank and file Queens residents, starting with Democrats. I'm proud to say my team just filed over 9,500 signatures to get on the ballot. For someone like me, who started literally by himself and put a team together on September 1st of 2022, when I went to Albany and filed for my committee, Grasso for Queens, to make this possible, I think it's an amazing thing. And when I'm out there in the field talking to people and explaining to them where I'm coming from on this, which is exactly what I just said publicly on air with you, the positive response, especially among African Americans, when I start talking about the drug dealing and the fentanyl and the lack of accountability, I'm talking about in Rosedale and Laurelton and Springfield Gardens and Jamaica, people are like, where can I sign? And they sign and they support me. So I'm in touch. But
you're also thinking about forming a third party so that you can get on the ballot even if you lose the Democratic primary and still challenge her in November.
I'm not just thinking about it, I'm doing it. I've already taken legal steps to do it. I have printed petitions. The name of my third party line is going to be the Public Safety Line. I'm going to be out in the field, I'm proud to say, this coming Tuesday, April 18th. I'll need another 4,000 signatures minimum. We're going to, again, get way more than 4,000. Because I'm a realist. You well know. I'm new to politics as running for political office, but I'm not new to the political realities of New York City. I will not permit my candidacy to be put in a box that's controlled by the Democrat establishment. So I believe I have a good chance of winning outright on June 27th. If I do, then I obviously would be the presumptive district attorney.
You're still going to have a third-party line.
But I'll still have the third-party line anyway. But if Melinda Katz comes out ahead, and in Queens, anything that's close usually seems to come out for the Democrat establishment. We all see that.
They count.
We all see that.
They count.
But that will be on the ballot November 7th. The Democrats, registered Democrats who voted for me on June 27th, and there will be thousands and thousands of them. I think the odds are very, very high when they see Grasso, not a hard name to remember, on the public safety line. They'll vote for me, and then I'll be giving independents and Republicans who are registered voters to vote for me. I'm not running as an ideologue. I'm running on someone whose entire career has been based and built around creating public safety, unprecedented levels of public safety in this city. That's what I'm running on, and that's how I'm appealing to people.
But you've caused a little bit of consternation among the Democrats because you've been going to Republican clubs and talking to them.
Right. The same Democrats who won't invite me to any of their clubs, they have the Hutzpah, I think that's the technical word.
That's a technical word.
The Hutzpah to criticize me for that. So yes, I am going to those clubs because they invited me. And like I said, my strategy, which is a public strategy, I'm not hiding this strategy from anyone, is ultimately to have an independent line. Whether I win in the primary or not, I'll have the independent line. And I'm going to be a unifier. Going to have Democrats, Republicans, independents. I'm not running as a guy with the secret Democrat handshake. I'm just running as someone who's proud to say worked with Commissioner Bill Braden, who I think in driving crime down goes down as the greatest commissioner in the history of New York City. And I'm very proud to say I have his endorsement. And I'm just trying to take the things and make them more modernized, involve the community when we get back to a quality of life strategy. But re-implement public safety for everyone. And the parts of Queens that are going to benefit the most are going to be the parts of Queens that have the lowest incomes, that are the most stressed, and they would, just as they were the parts that benefit, highest crime rates, highest overdose rates. That's where my help is going to be felt disproportionately. So I'm appealing to everyone. I'm not going as an ideologue.
So let's talk about what's going on in the legislature.
Right.
As we speak, there is still no state budget, partially because bail reform has been a sticking point.
Yes.
And what Governor Hochul wants to do is to give judges the ability they want to eliminate the thing that says judges have to consider the least restrictive.
Right.
So she wants to eliminate that so judges would have more discretion.
Yeah.
The legislature is really against it. How do you feel about that? I mean, you're a former judge.
Credit to Governor Hochul. She's just trying to be honest about this. This isn't like a novel concept. 49, every other state in the United States and the federal government permits dangerousness.
Right.
Of course, judges and courts should be concerned about dangerousness. The legislature recognizes this. Why do you think?
But they say that you're wrong.
Can you let me finish?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Why would they put crimes like murders and robberies and rapes as qualified crimes? Because they're concerned about dangerousness. But they don't want to admit that it's dangerous. Do you remember Casablanca? Casablanca is one of my favorite movies. There's a famous scene, for those who haven't seen Casablanca, where the Nazis are shutting down Rick's place. And they're shutting it down because people were actually standing up for Free France. And Claude Rains, I'm going way beyond the capacity of a lot of people who've seen movies, but Claude Rains was the police chief who always, was getting a free ride with the gambling from Rick, the Humphrey Bogart part. And so when they shut down the place, Humphrey Bogart goes to the police character and says, "Why are you shutting me down?" And he says, "Well, I've heard there's gambling here." And just as he's saying that, someone comes up with a stack of francs and says, "You're winning, sir." That's the legislature. It's like Casablanca when it comes to dangerousness. That's why I provided that. They know it's dangerousness.
But they say it's not.
But they say it's not. And it's intellectually dishonest. And the only thing the governor wants to do is to make a criminal justice system that is intellectually honest. Of course, the people of New York City and New York State are entitled to be defended from those who are committed and facing crimes and are deemed objectively to be a public safety risk.
Okay, so the very people in the legislature, by and large, who are against this bail reform tend to come from the minority communities. I think
they don't represent their own communities.
So, but here's the thing. So this past week, the Reverend Al Sharpton, who I think we can agree is one of the major civil rights activists in the nation,
absolutely,
came out and who has been a very, left of center progressive his entire life, came out and said the opposite, that we have to have a national conversation about urban crime, and supports Mayor Adams, who he didn't endorse in the primary, by the way, because he was a former cop, but he supports it because he says we have to do something about crime, and he's basically saying he supports bail reform. He didn't say it in so many words, but he came out in favor of that. So what message does that now send to the people in the legislature who are opposing bail reform, that one of the leading civil rights activists in the entire country now is siding with the mayor, who has asked the legislature to pass bail reform?
A clear message. They're out of touch with their own constituents. One of the things that I would assume that the Reverend Sharpton might have been thinking about is we recently had the horrific shooting in a smoke shop in Harlem, captured on video. A man brazenly takes out a gun and executes another man. Turns out that man was arrested and indicted for shooting and attempted to murder a New York City police officer. That individual should have been in remand status. Remand status. an obvious threat to public safety. Now, I don't want to speak for the Reverend Sharpton, but I would imagine he was thinking about that kind of insanity.
So what you're saying is that there's no attempt to look at recidivists and try to prevent them from going back on the street again.
That's why I spoke at the top of the show about how one-sided the process was. The legislature only spoke to advocates of the hard left. And in doing so, they used that so-called process, which was a non-process, to create the most sweeping criminal justice reform that we've ever seen in this city. And it's not just blowing up in their face. It's blowing up in the faces of all New Yorkers. And that's why I left the bench. My term wasn't up until December 31st, 2024. I was the administrative judge in Queens Supreme Court. Not a bad position from someone who started as a foot cop.
So why did you leave?
Because if I didn't leave, I couldn't be here ethically and telling you what I believe. Because as a judge, and it's an appropriate thing, as a judge, we take a code of silence. You know, we can't ethically speak publicly with the degree of frankness. I went to the line with this in February of 20, but then I just called for the legislature to reconvene. I was extending them an olive branch. Let's try and deal with this before it blows up. Now, not only did they obviously totally ignore me, we're more than 3 years out. And it is not only what I just said to you wasn't just an anecdote with the smoke shop. That is now emblematic of what's going on, that the people are no longer feeling accountable to go out and commit crimes, whether it's below ground on the subways, people are routinely being attacked, assaulted, punched, robbed. This can't continue. And above ground, we're seeing these things in these smoke shops. They shouldn't be able to operate selling cannabis illegally. Or what could go wrong? Cannabis, cash business, smoke shops. We've seen this movie before. The legislature and the city council dragged us back.
So I have one last question.
Yes.
I think this is something that really goes to what a district attorney is going to be concerned about. There's a move afoot in Albany to change the discovery laws and pull back from the changes that were made as part of bail reform. The changes, as you know, was to make sure that district attorneys turned over information in cases much faster than they have been doing in the past. But this has led to many cases being dismissed because the district attorneys just can't get this information out fast enough. How do you feel about this? The civil rights activists say this would be a horrible thing to change discovery and make it less liberal.
Sure, the same civil rights activists who wrote the bill to begin with. I think this type of a process...
But as a district attorney, if you win, what would you say?
Well, let me say, I thought you were asking me, what do I think about what's happening about this right now?
Okay,
so it's publicly reported that 4 district attorneys in New York City, at least from what I read, Eric Gonzalez and Darcel Clark and Mike McMahon and also Alvin Bragg, they're all pushing a discovery reform. Interestingly, I read, and this is from just what I read, Melinda Katz says she supports it, but she's not part of the group pushing for it, which is classic Melinda Katz, wanting both sides of every issue. I'm for it, but I'm not really with you. So if that's true, that's classic. Having said that, for the 4 New York City district attorneys who appear to have the courage to weigh in, they're absolutely right. I talked about the Queens County 5% felony conviction rate.
Right.
That's outrageously low. What about the victims of those felonies? How would you feel if you or a close family member was a victim of a serious felony and the case got thrown out, which is like a 95% risk in Queens? The bail reform is part of that. And Melinda Katz, from public reporting, isn't fully weighing in on trying to modify it, yet she complains about it. So, yeah, I believe we need to. Everybody before a criminal trial is entitled to legitimate, relevant information. But some of this stuff, they went into like intangible stuff, like 10 police cars show up at the scene of a crime, and police officers now, all body cam is ubiquitous. Every police officer, even someone who is tangential to, you've got to turn over all of that. And the burden the burden in terms of the district attorneys with the volume of incidents and arrests and prosecutions, we need some reasonableness. And also, from what I read, they're trying to create some kind of a time frame for a district attorney, for a defense attorney to make an objection to a DA's submission of a certificate of compliance. That makes sense. I mean, what we can't have a defense attorney is just laying in the weeds and waiting for an opportunity to do like an ambush on a DA and throw a case out. This isn't a game. This isn't Monopoly. Real lives in this city are impacted on that, and we need a more equal playing field for discovery reform. So if I was the DA now, I would be in with the other district attorneys. I wouldn't be like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
George Grasso, running for Queens District Attorney, thank you for joining us, and I'm sure we'll see you back here again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great being with you.